So Dave, we've just heard that the club has finally reached a settlement with Sports Direct. Can you give us some background on the discussions that led up to this settlement and what impact this settlement will have on the club going forward?
Yes, I think it's obviously well known to all of the supporters that the situation with Sports Direct has been very, very difficult for a number of years. After the regime change, the new board came in, we looked at the agreements that had been put in place, and we just felt that they were so onerous from the club's point of view. The club had signed away all the rights to Rangers Retail Limited, and we just felt there was a very, very inadequate return coming back to the club, and that led to some very acrimonious litigation. It was all in the public arena. There was threats to sue the directors. There was a threat to put me in jail for saying unkind things about Sports Direct. So we ended up in an extremely toxic and acrimonious relationship with Sports Direct. And probably about 10 months ago, we got to a point where Sports Direct said to us, well, look, rather than continue this litigation, I think they could see that we were fairly resolved, that we were not going to give in, because we felt that as Rangers we could not give in and live with arrangements. And they felt, look, let's see if we can get together and see if it is possible to negotiate new arrangements. We took a view that we would do that, obviously, because getting a retail arrangement is very, very important to the club. Rangers has always traditionally had the most successful retail operations in Scotland by far, and one of the most successful in the UK. And it was a great loss to the club in terms of competing locally and in Europe if we were going to continue to be denied access to that revenue stream. So we thought it was important. We agreed to enter into negotiations with Sports Direct, and the fact that it still took kind of 9 months to get to the point we've got today again reflects how difficult these discussions were. So I'm absolutely delighted that we have got to the position right now where we do have a retail arrangement in place that I can genuinely say to supporters for the first time, please come and buy your kit now, and in the full knowledge that by far the largest benefit of that is actually getting back into the club, and particularly into the football squad.
How favourably is this new deal weighted towards Rangers?
It's very favourable to Rangers. I think that what it does is recognise what I think the previous board should have made sure was included in the earlier arrangements, that Rangers is a very, very strong economic force. The level of retail kit we sell is far and above most of the English Premier League clubs. And we feel that that balance is recognised in the agreements, that it's a fair distribution in the sense that Sports Direct will be rewarded for the facilities they provide. They carry stock, they save us a lot of cash flow in terms of carrying that stock for us, and they must be rewarded for that. But by far the largest proportion is now coming back into the club, which is the way we believe it always should have been.
Why is the club then continuing to work with Sports Direct, given the history of the relationship, some of the reasons you outlined earlier?
There were two reasons for that. The first one is that in order for Sports Direct to agree to renegotiate with us and walk away from the arrangements, they were never going to do that if they weren't included in the new arrangements. So really what they were coming to us and saying, okay, if we do rip up the existing arrangements and we do work with you on a basis that's more favourable, we still have to be a player. And we understood there was no economic reason for them to rip up the old agreements if there was nothing in it. So we would have ended up litigating for a number of years with them. So that was an important reason. And the other one is that David Murray about 10 years ago had sold the Rangers retail operations that we had ourselves to JGB Sports. So whatever deal we did, we had to find a retailer to work with. So it was a combination of recognising the fact that we needed a retail partner, and the fact that Sports Direct, and we must remember Sports Direct are a smart retailer. We never ever doubted their retail ability or their distribution network. Our concern was just simply that the terms that were agreed by the previous board were unfair towards the club, and it was not something that we could continue to live with. Therefore, we're delighted to get to a point now where we have a set of arrangements that properly recognise the status of Rangers Football Club, so we're really, really pleased that Sports Direct at least were willing to negotiate and put these arrangements in place with us.
How long will the new deal last?
The new deal, unlike the old deal, which was a 7-year deal, the new deal will last till the end of next season, so it runs in parallel with the Puma deal. So that will run to the end of next season, and then we will look at the performance over the next season, and then we will then go to the market at the end of next season and look at the various options we've got then, which may or may not include Sports Direct.
So what does this mean then in terms of extra income for Rangers Football Club?
It's massive for the club. The investment that we've had over the last couple of years has excluded any income from the retail operations whatsoever. And the plans that we've put in place this season, including the various transfers we've engaged in, have all also been based on the fact there'll be no income from retail. So the fact that we are now going to have a guaranteed and fairly sizable revenue from retail means that that money also can go back into the club. So It really is good news for the supporters and for the manager, knowing that he will now have greater resources than he thought he had yesterday.
So can you put into words then just how significant this day is for Rangers?
You know, Paul Murray sent me an email this morning, I think, that kind of encapsulated, I think, quite nicely. He said it's really absolutely monumental in terms of the amount of effort that's going to get the deal done, and it's the most significant day from the club since regime change. And thinking about it, I think Paul is exactly right. This is the most significant thing since regime change.
The relationship with Puma you spoke about there, what's that like? Does that remain strong?
The relationship with Puma has actually been exceptionally strong, and Puma have actually been amazing. You know, if you take their situation, you know, they entered into an arrangement with the club, knowing it's a big club, expecting a level of retail sales, and then found out that was denied to them because of the boycott by the supporters. And of course, that wasn't Puma's fault. Puma did nothing wrong. Puma kind of ended up being the kind of meat in the sandwich between the clubs and Sports Direct, and they behaved perfectly throughout that. I think they could have taken a more aggressive stance legally against the club if they wanted to do, but they haven't. They've kind of sat in the sidelines and been very patient in allowing us to try and work out a new deal. And I think they're as delighted as we are that they will finally get some Rangers supporters wearing Puma kit, and we're hoping to see kind of a lot of blue in the terraces, which is something we've missed at Ibrox for a number of years.
Were there times when you thought this whole deal would have had to run its full 7-year course?
No. I'm disappointed it took us 2 years. If I go back to regime change, I think one of the commitments that I gave to the supporters was obviously running the club in a certain way, you know, financially prudent, disciplined, but also resolve the retail operations. And at that time, I would have expected it to be done within, let's say, maximum of a year. So it's taken a lot longer than I expected, but I always felt a deal would be done, because as long as we continue to show our resolve to Sports Direct and saying that we will not continue with all the Rangers, we will not, by any legal methods, be bullied into dealing with Sports Direct on a basis that we didn't think was right for the club. And I always felt that once Sports Direct recognised that, even though they felt that they had enforceable agreements, that when they recognised that, irrespective of that, they weren't going to be implemented by the club, I always felt we would get to a point where we could sit down and discuss, and that's ultimately what happened.
What happens now to Mike Ashley's shareholding?
There'll be a further, I can't comment at this point in time regarding his shareholding, but there will be a further announcement in that regard quite soon.
So just so that supporters can be absolutely clear, you're formally calling for an end to the boycott and for supporters to start buying the kit again?
Yes, I mean, I've said to supporters on a number of occasions that I was looking forward to the day where I could honestly stand up before them and say we have a retail deal in place that they can trust, that they can support, and knowing that if they buy kit, that by far the large portion of the proceeds of that kit is going to go into the club and into the football team. And I'm finally in a position where I can say to supporters, please now, you can start to buy the kit, knowing that the benefit of that purchase is going to go into the club.
Just another couple questions on the kit deal. Has this come too late for the start of next season in terms of launching a new kit?
Yes, it has. We, for two reasons. One is as far as the Europa League was concerned, we had to register the kit last week already, so we've had to go with the old kit. And in discussions with Puma, it's absolutely impossible for us now to get a new kit in times for the season, to register it, you know, with the league in times for the season. So we're going to have to go with the old kit for this season. But what we will do, and are in discussions already with Puma, is to get a new second and third kit, which will be launched as soon as we possibly can, probably within a couple of months.
And now this is all settled, can this allow you to apply your mind and your time to some more positive aspects of the club?
Yeah, I think on a personal basis, if I look at the amount of time that I've had to spend on Rangers over the last couple of years since the regime change, I've actually spent far more time in Rangers than I have in my own businesses in South Africa and internationally. And a lot of that's been in damage control issues. It's not been positive, it's not been progressive, it's just been trying to get us, it's really been part of the rebuilding and rehabilitation process. So I'm looking forward now to the opportunity to be more creative, and instead of, from a personal point of view, kind of flying into the UK for legal meetings and going home, I can now probably spend some time watching some games and getting kind of some of the fun out of the association with the club that's been missing. And I think also from the club point of view, you know, we've had a situation where there's also a lot of legal fees. It's not just the time that we've put in from our point of view, but the litigation's been costing the club a lot of money. So not only have we had the loss of the retail revenue, but with the cost of the litigation as well. So now we get the double benefit. that we start to get a substantial revenue from the retail operations, but we can stop paying away these exorbitant legal costs.